it's a special election period.
Yeah.
And so if you move from out of state and are in an Advantage plan, you have another guaranteed issue right to join a supplement.
So let me recap and make sure that's right.
Yeah.
So if you're living in the Midwest and you move here to St. George and you had not a supplement, but an Advantage plan somewhere else.
Yep.
And you move here, you have a chance at guarantee issue on a supplement if at that point you decide you want to change your mind.
Correct.
Information presented on this program is believed to be factual and up to date, but we do not guarantee its accuracy, and it should not be regarded as complete analysis of the subjects discussed. Discussions and answers to questions do not involve the rendering of personalized investment advice, but are limited to the dissemination of general information. A professional advisor should be consulted before implementing any of the options presented. Encompass More Asset Management LLC is a registered investment advisor with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission and only transacts business in states where it is properly registered or is excluded or exempted from registration requirements.
Cross-country insurance is what you're now? Is that what you're...
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I always think of like the Medicare Safari guy. Yeah.
well, yeah, it's MedicareTourGuide.com.
Yeah, Medicare Tour Guide. Yeah.
It's cross-country insurance. Yeah,
cross-country.
absolutely.
Is that your brand or is that the IMO that you work with?
No, that's my brand.
That's your brand, cross-country insurance. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So, okay, your website, MedicareTourGuide.com.
Yes, sir.
I always remember that about like I saw you do like a presentation one time where you're like, I take people through, and you had this hat you put on, and you're like, I take people through this safari of finding these, all this stuff. Anyways, you had this shtick about, it's like Medicare, there's a lot of options. Everyone knows that. Well, anyone that's ever dealt with Medicare knows there's a lot of options. And you guide people through the process. How did you get into Medicare? What is the experience that led you into like, I want to help people with Medicare? Because truthfully, to me, like I do stuff that people are constantly like, that's got to be the most boring thing in the world ever. And I'm like, I'm so excited about it.
I get that a lot.
But I think that about Medicare usually, right? I'm like, oh, Medicare. Okay. All right. Let's talk about it. You know?
Exactly. Your brain just shuts off, right?
So how in the world did you be like, when I grow up, I want to be a Medicare agent and help retiring people with Medicare needs?
Perfect. Yeah. So I didn't grow up thinking that, right?
Sure.
But my background, so how we came up with cross-country insurance is my wife and I moved here from Michigan. And so we traveled across country a couple times. And then, so she's been a medical assistant. So working in the doctor's offices in the back, helping them file paperwork and stuff for 17 years. And then I've been in rehab clinics for 13 years of my life. And so coming out here, and exactly your point, right? Like, Medicare, your brain just shuts off. Well, now imagine getting 10 phone calls a day, 10 different mailers every day in the mail of what to pick. I really saw a need. So I was just like, listen, this is my wife's background. Why not? Right. And so getting into it, I came up with this tour guide thing because it is a jungle. Right. And, I just want to help people just navigate that. And that's sort of how I got into it in a nutshell.
Okay. So Medicare is, let's cover what Medicare is real fast.
Okay.
A government, it's not even a government sponsored program. It is government insurance.
It is. Yeah. It's a government program.
But people still have the ability to engage with an insurance agent that can enroll them in Medicare and then Medicare plans. Those insurance agents have an economic incentive, right? You make commission for signing people up for Medicare. If I understand this correctly, you don't make a commission for signing people up for like Part A and getting them enrolled in Medicare.
Correct.
But then there's these ancillary things to Medicare, right? So everyone kind of gets Medicare Part A. I think everyone can get B, right?
More or less, yeah.
But then all of a sudden there's Part D, and
Part
then
C, supplements.
C, and then you get into supplements and Advantage plans,
which
all
is
this
Part
stuff.
C, FYI.
All right.
Yeah.
See, this is why we talk. Okay. There's costs that people pay when they buy these plans.
Correct.
But they're available. And so they can work with, they can either just sign up for them on their own if they can find them.
Yep.
But they'll be the same cost as if they engage with an agent like you, or another, approved and licensed person to do it. And they can look at what are these things we want to add. Again, there's cost, but they have the ability to weigh out and get different benefits, and different plans.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So Medicare, I'll just lay out Medicare itself, right? Before we get into the Advantage and the supplements, right?
Okay.
So original Medicare is what you can sign up for when you're 65. Okay. And so that is Part A, which is generally free if you've worked 10 years or more in your life. Okay. And that's your hospital coverage, right?
Okay.
Then you sign up for Part B, which is your medical coverage. And that has a monthly premium attached to it, but it is based off your annual income, right? So there's a set limit. If you make under that, it's going to be the same. If you make over it, then they incorporate this thing called IRMA, which is going to tack on additional monthly premium to that Part B. And so that's what I go through with people. I just let them know, hey, just be on the lookout for this, right? So they aren't surprised by it, right?
And the place that they normally see that, like they typically they're not going to pay a bill. It's going to come out of a reduction in their Social Security.
If they have signed up for Social Security. If not, then yes, they will get a bill.
Pay the bill.
Yes.
So in my experience, like most people just they seem to be right. They're already filing Social Security. A lot of the people I've worked with, if not though, that's interesting. Okay. I hadn't really thought about that. The logistical side of that.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't, right? Like a lot of people don't know that it's based on income.
Okay.
Yeah.
Quick note based on income on that. The reason that I learned about the Part B and the income limits on that is from Roth conversions.
Okay.
And so one of the things what we're doing on my side is when we're doing the tax planning with people, it's always a give and take. You can look to max out a tax bracket, but all of a sudden actually mess up someone's Medicare Part B premium. So so you've maxed their tax bracket out and maybe quote unquote, got dollars out of tax jail or whatever for them, however people want to think about it.
Yeah.
But you just cause this inadvertent tax in Medicare premiums that you didn't, so you have to be really aware of where those premium cutoffs are on Medicare. So that way, as you're doing the rest of your tax planning, right, it makes a big effect.
Because I've seen those Part B premiums be double than what somebody pays.
It's huge.
If they don't pay attention to what they're getting yearly.
I've had experiences where people have wanted distributions from like their IRAs and it's coming in at the end of the year. And we're able to look at it and say, hey, why don't we kick that distribution? Like, do you have somewhere that you can float some of that money for the next month or so?
Okay.
All right. So if somebody says like, I need $5,000. Yeah. And they're already at a limit where you're about to start messing with your Medicare premiums.
Yeah.
Can you pull $5,000 from a line of credit you have? Or, can you put it on a credit card for 21 days here, you know what I mean? And then just wait till January 1st, get the money out at that point, but you're kicking then the taxable event into the next year. Does that make sense?
Correct. It will go to the next year, but they do look back for, I believe, 2 years. So
right. But you're balancing out so instead of taking a big distribution out that would push you into the next tax bracket, you're taking part of it out this year and then part of it out the next calendar year, which at the end of the year might only be 2 weeks away.
Correct.
Right. But now you're kind of just spreading it out. If it's an abnormal distribution, does that?
It does.
Something to be aware of.
Absolutely. Because like I sort of touched on just a little bit ago, if you do make that mistake, they look back 2 years of tax returns. So that mistake could be 2 years, right? And then Part D is prescription drug plan. So those Part A, Part B, and then Part D encompasses original Medicare.
Okay.
Yep. And so so that's original Medicare. And then there's two paths you can take from there, right? One's called a supplement, and then one's called an advantage plan. And that's really where I come in, is I give people the tour of their different options on both paths, because you can only pick one. And so I go through their health history, I go through what their needs are, and I just really go in depth with them just to see which one suits them better, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are the main differences people should be looking for when they're considering, do I get a supplement or an advantage plan?
Family history is a good one, right? Like if your dad, your grandpa, your great grandfather all had heart disease or cancer, right? It's probably a good thing to plan for that, right?
Sure.
Same with the women. Like I know breast cancer is a big thing. So if your mom had it, your grandma had it, or if they haven't had it, but you're worried that you're going to have it, that's a really big factor, because for a supplement, your only guaranteed issue right to that is when you turn 65. Any other time, you're going to have to answer health questions. Okay. And so if you do wait too long for that, it might be too late. And then not to say Advantage won't still cover you, but there's copays on that end, right? There's a maximum out of pocket, but there are still copays, and some people don't like that.
So depending on your ability to self-insure, what you're saying is, let me back that up. So you're saying on the supplement side, you can pay a higher monthly cost. Yeah. But at 65, you get guaranteed issue. So it doesn't matter if you even currently have cancer.
Correct.
Or any health condition, right? You're qualified, you can get it. And, it might be more expensive. It might be a couple $100 a month or whatever. But there's no cost typically to visit the doctor, to get care, right? It's just kind of more like that all built-in, all-inclusive treatment, right? If you will, right? It's
yeah, depending on the supplement plan you go through.
Okay.
So there's plans A, B, C, D, G, M, N, and L, I believe, but don't quote me on that. But the main thing is that there's 6 to 7 different options when it comes to supplements, and they all cover different things.
Okay.
And then there are like 50 different companies that offer these exact same supplements, all asking for a different premium for the exact same thing, which is kind of crazy. And so that's another reason where I come in, is I just shop all those. But yes, I go through which one. Majority Plan G will cover 100% of your medical issues, except for a yearly deductible, which I think this year isn't too much. I think it's like $240 this year. Okay. So the first $240 they have, that would be their out of pocket, and then the rest, go get a specialist, go to your primary care, and you don't have a bill after that. You don't have a copay, as they say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on the supplement side, cost is more robust, but the coverage is more robust.
Absolutely.
Typically, right? So then what's a advantage? That's a supplement. What's an advantage plan?
So an advantage plan is going to work like sort of the health insurance you have now.
Okay.
Right. It's going to be networks. It's either an HMO or a PPO. Okay. You're going to have copays depending on what plan and what company you go through. They're all different. Okay. And then also to I guess the caveat to this is there's 19 different advantage plans that are available here in Washington County alone. Okay. So, and each one of them has a different summary of benefits. So it really depends on what plan you have, what your copays would be, and then what doctors take that, because you have to stick in network. And then, so that's sort of a rundown on how an advantage plan would work, right? It's going to be almost like the insurance you have now with networks. It's going to come with a prescription drug plan, and it's going to come with like dental and vision and hearing benefits.
Dental, hearing, and vision benefits, is that something that you can get on the on the supplement side?
It is, but it's a different policy.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's an added monthly premium on top of your supplement premium and on top of your Part B premium.
Yeah. And this is the part where people say insurance sucks. This is the part for sure where people say insurance sucks.
It does. But luckily for them, I know what I'm doing really well. And so I go through all that with them, and I give them the rundown of what's going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot to understand. I think it's really pivotal. When I look at, when I'm talking about health insurance with people or insurances in general, one of the conversations I'm typically trying to have from a planning side is, what is your ability to like self-insure, right? Yeah. So if, and I'm going to just use totally made up numbers here for anyone listening. If you're in pretty good health and a supplement's $1,000 a month on premium, and a Advantage plan is, free or $100 a month, right? But there's costs and there's out-of-pocket premiums and there's this, but you have a max out-of-pocket of $3,000 to $5,000 a year. Well, like no one wants to pay the extra money, right? Like no one over here, you're going to pay a premium and no, there's no other cost. Over here, you're going to have some max out-of-pocket. Say the max out-of-pocket is even, $10,000, $15,000. But if you have $1 million liquid and it's all built into your plan, that you can handle that, and you don't anticipate hitting that every single year, but in any particular year that you did it, you still had a maximum amount of exposure that you could sort of plan for, then you have to consider that, in my opinion, when you're weighing it out, right? Now that conversation only comes after, I like what you highlighted and called out with family health history, and that sort of stuff, right? That is a very key pivotal thing for people to understand.
There it is.
There is one time to get guaranteed issue for the most part. I understand that there's maybe some, loophole periods potentially on different stuff. There always seems to be, but you really on Medicare, you kind of get one shot to get a guaranteed issue on a supplement.
Yeah.
And if you're not looking so good in the health, department, you might really consider that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if not, you really have to wait out in your financial plan. What are the actual costs going to be on, okay, I have this coverage, but what are my exposures on if I need to actually go use this, right? Something really happens.
Yep.
Do you find that there's ever like a good question to ask for like, just the average person? This stuff is so overwhelming. And one of the things that I got taught one time or told is I have my wife's aunt and uncle, and we both served in the Army, so we had TRICARE.
Okay.
But as I was getting out of the Army and I was like potentially having to look at new, health insurance and stuff, they said, well, the question that we just always asked before, we were in the Army is we would say, what does it cost to have a baby on this insurance? Right? Like there's all these complexities and they don't know how to weigh out this or that and stuff, but they're like, that's a big expense.
It is.
And they were at a point in life where they're like, we're going to have kids. So they're like, that was the question that they told me like they would ask. And I always thought that's kind of interesting. Like it's just an easy way to get a quick understanding, right? I'm buying health insurance. What does it cost to have a baby on this? Is it good or is it bad? What's my exposure? What if this baby goes to the NICU? What's my cost going to be?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there a cost like that with Medicare? Like, what does it cost to get a hip replacement? Or, what do you ask on Medicare?
That's a good one. But because we're moving into the older generation, my question is, what do you think it costs to treat cancer? Right? Because that's what 80% of the population wants to know. That's going because it gets to be a scare. And so my question is like, how concerned are you with cancer? Right? What do you think your, I guess, medical bills, if you did get diagnosed with cancer, what do you think your medical bills would be? And so that's what I do, right? I go through that and I lay out on the Advantage side, I lay out what the potential yearly cost is going to be. And then on the supplement, it's kind of a moot point because like I said, it's all going to be covered at 100%, right? Depending on the plan you go through, it would be covered at 100%.
Is the quality of coverage different?
No. Well, no, because you can all use the same doctors, right?
Okay.
with a supplement, there is no network, right? So like, let's say you got a really rare tumor on your spine and only 5 doctors in the world could work on it and 2 are in New York, right? Like your Advantage plan probably isn't going to cover him unless it's a PPO. And at that point, it's going to be out of network coverage, right? So you're probably going to hit your maximum out of pocket for that year, right?
Okay.
On the supplement side, if they take Medicare, you can go to them. There doesn't have to be a network.
I believe if you take insurance at all, you have to accept Medicare, right? Isn't there something?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what stops like those? Like, what would be the incentive for those 5 doctors to say, "Yeah, we take Medicare"? I'm a highly compensated specialist that everyone in the world that has this issue wants to come see me from wherever they're at.
Right.
If
they're working
Medicare,
if they're working for a hospital, they're going to be taking Medicare because they're contracted through the hospital.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
If it's some dude that has his own practice,
Maybe
that's
not.
a different story, right? But if it's a surgeon that works for a really well-known hospital, there wouldn't be a worry on that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just because Medicare is so prevalent everywhere,
Yeah,
right?
there's like-
It's the government insurance like we talked about.
So basically you're saying like, there's not like going to be a facility like Intermountain Health or something that like wouldn't take Medicare.
Right.
You know, they're just anything that's of size that way is for the most part. Obviously, nothing's guaranteed in this life.
It's true. Nothing is guaranteed.
The expectation would be doctors working with, larger hospitals would be accepting Medicare. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. That answers that on that. Cancer. An interesting thought I had is, so my dad told me one time he was a CFO of a manufacturing company when I was a small kid before he started our practice here. And he told me the 2 most common reasons why employees had financial difficulties, and in particular that would lead to bankruptcy, is having kids, right? So like you don't have the right insurance coverage elected or whatever, and you got the NICU baby and that buries someone.
Yeah.
And then treating cancer.
Yep.
And that made me think of that because I had the first one was, what does it cost of a baby? And then we pivoted right to like, well, what is the cost of cancer?
Yeah.
And that's no joke. There's people that have to deal with that. And if you don't have the right selections and elections made, it can bankrupt somebody quick.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. It can absolutely bury people.
Yeah. So I actually dealt with that when so that was another driving factor, is because a couple of years ago I got diagnosed with cancer, and so it all came crashing down. Right, like the plan I had wasn't suited for what I had. The prescription drug coverage, yes, I had it, but because the cancer I had was rare, the treatment for it, my prescription drug plan didn't cover it. So it was going to be like $15,000 a month for this medication. But luckily my wife works as a medical assistant. And so she knew to go to the manufacturer's websites, get a coupon, and then it cost me $50 a month as a copay to get this med, and then the manufacturer actually picked up the rest. So that's another sort of service that I offer because I've been there, I've been through it. It does bury you. I'm still paying on some of those medical bills for like those PET scans and everything else that I had to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tough world. That's, you haven't shared that with me before. And that gives some clarity to your passion around, helping people get the right coverage, particularly in the demographic where they tend to deal with the most issues like that.
Absolutely. And that's why I love what I do. And that's why I came up with a tour guide thing, because most treat it as a meeting, and I don't want it to be a meeting. I want it to be a conversation and me trying to help the best I can to my ability and what is going to help you instead of what's going to help me and my bottom line.
Yeah.
Right. Because like, obviously you own a business and you want to make money, but honestly, I don't care. I just want to make sure that if something was to happen to you, you're good, right? Like you're not going to get financially ruined, because when you get to 65, most people are on a fixed income and they can't take that, right? Like a 30-year-old can make it back, right? 15, 20 years. If you're over 65, you have limited time, you're on a limited income, you're not going to make that back, right? And so I really, really, really do look at that. Prime example, there was somebody that moved out of state, from out of state to here. So those loopholes that you said about the supplement, they're called special election periods. Okay, we don't say loopholes.
I don't do that.
It's okay.
I don't do health insurance, so I can say whatever I want.
It's okay. But it's a special election period.
Yeah.
And so if you move from out of state and are in an Advantage plan, you have another guaranteed issue right to join a supplement.
So let me recap and make sure that's right.
Yeah.
So if you're living in the Midwest and you move here to St. George and you had not a supplement but an Advantage plan somewhere else.
Yep.
And you move here, you have a chance at guarantee issue on a supplement if at that point you decide you want to change your mind.
Correct. Because if you move to an area where your Advantage plan isn't offered, that opens up that special enrollment period.
And Advantage plans are typically offered kind of by zip code or county.
County. Yep.
County.
Yeah. Not zip code, but county.
County.
Yep.
Okay.
So this person called me up and said, "Hey, Brian, I need your help. I heard your name from somewhere." I was like, "Yeah, sure. Not a problem." I went over what he needed. He was like, "Oh yeah, I had an Advantage plan back where I came from. I just kind of want to stick with an Advantage plan." I was like, "Perfect. Sounds good. Not a problem." So I got him in one 2 days before that plan was supposed to take effect. He called me and said that he got diagnosed with cancer. So I used that special enrollment period to get him into a supplement as a guarantee issue. Now he doesn't have to worry about that.
I think someone's going to be bugged that I'm saying this, but what stops somebody from Washington County from like being like, "Oh, I'm on an Advantage plan and I got cancer. You know what? I just signed a lease at somewhere up in Cedar City and I'm moving up there and I got to change now and I'd like my guarantee issue on supplement."
Yeah. So it would have to be out of state.
Out of state.
Yeah. Because most Advantage plans are going to be offered throughout the state.
It's by county, but it's offered throughout the state. Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So it has to be somewhere.
Sorry, you're going to have to move to Littlefield, Arizona.
Yeah. You're going to have to move to Arizona or Nevada.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to move somewhere that doesn't offer what you currently have. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So there are some caveats to it. And so it is hard. But yeah, it is possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Switching really quick to like a personal viewpoint question. In the portfolio management space, it's often talked about that whatever your experience is the first year that you're managing assets, that's kind of your bias that will be with you for almost the rest of your career, right?
Okay.
Like, so if you get in the business and it's just rip roaring to the upside for a couple of years in the markets, right? Like your view forever, it's just like the markets just go up over time. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And then if you're one of those, unlucky people that you start your career like in 2000 or 2008 or, God forbid you're the guy that like, I started my career, like February 15th of 2020 or something, you know what I mean? Like right as COVID, and you're just like the first experience you ever have is like the market crashing. That tends to carry through to somebody's like viewpoint on investments, right? So if you're the guy that started when markets are down, you always have this focus on risk management and what happens, when that kind of happens again.
Yeah.
And if you're somebody that starts in a
bull
bull market,
completely different perspective.
Your perspective is like, oh, we'll just ride it out when it goes down, because by the first time you had a drawdown, right, you were like, you had made a bunch of money, so you're just giving back some of your gain, but you still made money. So you're like, yeah, markets go up and down, but we always make money, over time.
Yeah.
And so you end up with these totally behavioral, right? And that's not a hard and fast rule, but people in the business talk about, they're like, oh, that guy's, he started in, 1999, it's focusing on tech, or whatever it's, do you think that you potentially have a bias like that when you're helping people, like because of your experience with cancer, that you have a conscious or subconscious bias to like want people to purchase maybe more insurance than they need?
So I mean, I do have the outlook on what can go wrong.
Sure.
Right. But no, because that's what that conversation at the very beginning is, right?
Okay.
Like, I want them to be completely 100% satisfied in what they have, right? And that's why I go through their health history. I go through what their fears are, right?
Okay.
And if the plan that I'm introducing or presenting, whatever, doesn't fit that need, why am I going to do that, right? Prime example, I worked in the other insurance world, the P&C insurance world, and I also worked for a car dealership. And the car dealership, I stopped after a month because I saw their practices, right? And I just couldn't sleep right at night. And then on the P&C world, it was with a captive agency, and I knew that they could get the same car insurance for cheaper somewhere else. And so it was just very hard for me to push that because I did know that they could get it cheaper somewhere else. So I don't think so on the biased part. And that's another reason why I have those conversations, right? Is just to make sure that they are getting what they need, not what is going to benefit me. Because at the end of the day, this is their health insurance. They're going to be going through these things, not me, right? And so I want to make sure that they're good to go for however long that they have. I guess I don't want to say left, but I guess for however long they have left.
Until they experience the end of their financial plan.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid question to ask.
It is.
And I don't mean to ask you to put that on the spot, but because I think it's important for people to consider and understand. It's really easy. I think from the outside looking in, when you don't understand the financial system, you don't understand how actuarial tables work and how the pricing structure of this all works on the back end. And Medicare is a crap system. I'll just say that's my opinion. I think it's, most government systems are. But even on, the rest of insurance, right? Or investments or real estate agents or attorneys, right? Like I always hear people talk about estate attorneys and like, oh, he just wants to sell me a trust. I'm like, well, yeah. He's got an understanding of why that really might be impactful for you. Mm-hmm. And I get you don't want to pay the bill right now, but he's seeing the bigger picture typically. Mm-hmm. And you're seeing right now that you got to cut a check. And so I think sometimes it's easy for people when they go and work with an insurance agent, sometimes to have the perspective of this guy just wants me to buy as much insurance as I can get because that's what's going to make him the most money. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, like when I start working with other, people on other people's insurance, right? I'm not outside consultant, just talking through stuff. Sometimes I'm going, that's kind of what this guy is doing, right? I'm looking at the rest of the financial plan going like, this is way more insurance than you need. And the insurance guys always say the same thing. Well, what if XYZ catastrophe happens? And I'm like, I'm looking at the rest of their net worth and saying they'll probably be okay. It's not fun. No one wants to pay it, but they have the risk capacity and, the desire, and they don't want all this insurance. And, but the lens through which the insurance guy always sees it is, or not always, but so often, is they need to buy,
not always, but a lot.
Yeah.
Right. A lot. Because a lot in our positions do use that. Well, what if, right? They use that fear tactic. Right.
And it's not a complete conversation, but it's the conversation that's the scope that they're used to having. Right. Yep. Because it would be, for most people, it'd be really unusual if their Medicare agent sat down and said, okay, well, so how many, what do you have in your retirement accounts? What do your monthly bills look like otherwise? It's like, it just seems so off the wall. Yeah. And so that's the conversations that I kind of try to have, is more that high level, and then, work with someone that like you, that's the expert in all the different things. And then let's just check and make sure that is right and fits the financial plan. It doesn't blow stuff up. If that, thing that could go wrong does go wrong. Right?
Yeah. And to sort of go back to your point, is it biased? Do I have a biased outlook and just try to sell them what's going to make me the most money. I don't know if I should say this or not, but I'm going to. That person who moved out of state to here, and we pivoted from the Advantage plan to the supplement that was guaranteed issue. I didn't make a commission on that.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have when he called, I could have been like, "Oh yeah, this plan is good," and I could have made a commission. But I decided to go this way because that was going to be better for him, and I didn't make anything off of that.
Right.
So no. And so I have the same sort of outlook as you do. Is I really want the best for them. And yeah, I could have said that what if or whatever to some clients, but that's just to sort of put into perspective that I really do care about what my clients have instead of what am I getting out of it, right? Because this is a small town, right? I want people to talk about me. I want people to say, "Oh, Brian's amazing," right? Like, what is it going to do me if I come to you, Brandon, and I'm like, "Hey, get this health insurance plan. It's awesome. I know you've told me that you've had TRICARE probably 5 different times, but what would I do to sell you a health insurance and then you feel like you were taken advantage of, and then you never say, 'Hey, go see my buddy Brian,' or I just let it go, and then you're like, 'Hey, go see my buddy Brian,' right? Like, I want you to talk about me. I want you to say, 'Hey, he did me a really good solid. You should go talk to him,' right? Like, word of mouth is everything. So if I do an injustice, that's on me, and I'm not going to be around for a very long time after that.
Reputation does matter.
It does. Yeah. So hopefully that calms your fears about me a little bit. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I don't have any fears about you, but it's it's always interesting from my perspective, right?
Yeah.
I am kind of in a lot of circles, as far as like industry circles, right? I'm very much in the real estate circle. I'm very much in the, life insurance circles. I'm very much in, this, like the circles with a lot of the CFPs and certified financial planners in town. I'm very much in the circles of institutional money managers and estate planning attorneys and health insurance agents and property and casualty insurance, like everyone, right?
Yeah.
And because I do, like, I help people with all of these things, but I'm not always the person that, like sells a product or, puts it in place. Like yourself, for example, right? Like, I don't do Medicare. We're looking at kind of everything and how it all integrates, right?
Yeah.
We're helping with the strategy there. And, it's funny, like just when you get inside the circle, sometimes there's, these echo chambers that exist, and to see them from the outside perspective always is sometimes crazy.
Yeah.
And one of the things I notice about insurance agents is that they always want to insure everything. It's like they are very risk averse people that want to insure everything possible in insurance. And then, and then you get to some of the other circles and they go, every insurance possible is a scam. And, like, I wish I never had to pay for any of it.
Right.
And I just, I'm not sure
that what if scenario.
Well, it's like,
right?
there's a balance. There is a balance there. There's a healthy balance there. There's some insurance that's very valuable to have, very important to have.
Yep.
Is a great risk return trade-off. And then there is some insurance that does suck. And it sucks. If you have it, it sucks. If you go to use it, it sucks. If when you pay it, it sucks. And, that insurance does suck, but it can skew the view of all insurance, right? To
yep.
People. One of the things I like to remind people is that your best insurance is going to be for what insurance was originally intended for. Low probability, high impact events. The more something comes into, moderate impact and higher probability, you're coming into more of something akin to buying the extended warranty at the dealership for your car. Because, or the maintenance plan. It's like, of course, your car is going to have oil changes. And of course, your car is going to have some minor issues that need repair at some point.
Yep.
Right. But that's what, like I talk about term life insurance a lot. It's cheap, right? It's not designed to pay a death benefit if you die of old age, right? It's designed for that in the middle. A fluke happens. And so it's really cheap, but low probability, right? Like most people don't die prematurely.
Right.
Extremely high impact to their families.
Oh,
right?
extremely.
So that's like, it's just a good opportunity for what an appropriate use of an insurance is. Medicare, more difficult because it's a government program. So now everyone has it. All the doctors have to take it. So now it's really less insurance and more cost share.
Yeah.
Truthfully.
Yep.
But it's still important to participate, and love it or hate it, your tax dollars have already been paid to fund up this program. And you're going to have some kind of medical care, most likely at some point. And the costs are probably going to be significant when you do. So it's worth spending a little bit of time getting with the right Medicare professional as you turn 64, start thinking about that, start talking to your financial planner, whether it's me or someone else on one of my teams, or, whoever you work with, start having the conversations about what kind of insurance, when's your enrollment period, who do you need to talk to, what do you need to get in place, what's right for you. And spend a little bit of brain power on it.
Absolutely.
It's going to be potentially very impactful.
Yeah. So yes, spend quite a bit of brain power on it. Just because it's not a life or death situation. It's not a like a. I mean, what one time you get one shot at it, because there are changes you can always do.
Sure.
But when I say spend a medium amount of brain power on it, is most people will have a certain company through their employer until they're 65. They get bombarded with all those mailers I talked about earlier, all those phone calls. They're going to just stick with that company they had from their employer and not even think twice. They're going to be like, oh, this company was good, I'll just go with them. When
in reality, they have a lot of options, and it can probably make a big difference on the premiums, which is your monthly costs.
Yep.
Or it can make a big difference on your benefits, which is your cost of use.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, 100%. And so it does pay to have a 45-hour conversation with somebody like me, to just go over that and just see what your needs are and just get you into something. So, you're good, right? To kind of take that pressure off of picking something. Yeah. I guess I should probably talk about the enrollment periods.
Yeah. I mean, hit it real quick.
Yeah,
and,
for sure. So when somebody's turning 65,
okay,
they have a 7-month window.
Okay.
They have 3 months before their birth month. They have their birth month, and they have 3 months after their birth month to sign up for Medicare if they're not already taking Social Security, and then to sign up whichever way you're going to go, a Medicare Supplement or a Medicare Advantage.
Okay.
So they have that 7 months to pick something, right?
Okay.
Yep. Unless you have employer coverage, then that gets put on, but that's a different conversation that we can have.
Here's the takeaway.
Yeah.
When you're a couple months out from turning 64,
65.
When you're 64, a couple months out from turning 65, call your financial planner, call your wealth management advisor, right? Call your trusted people and just start asking the questions and get in touch with somebody that is a trusted contact of theirs that they've worked with, or that they trust. If you can't find that, I'm always someone that's a big fan of a second opinion. So, if you start working with someone that's a Medicare, like find out who your friends' financial planners are. And like maybe even if you just pay them for an hour of their time to get a second opinion sometimes is not a bad idea either.
Well, that's the best part is speaking with somebody like me is free.
Right.
Yeah. Even on a second opinion.
Well, and I guess what I'm saying is sometimes having just an opinion from somebody that's not selling the product, you know what I mean? Like somebody that's not potentially selling the product, like go pay a consultant, go pay a financial planner. There's people out there. I mean, I just sent a referral to another financial planner in town for something that they're quite good at. And, somebody just wanted to pay them for an hour of their time. And I said, well, talk to so-and-so, and they do a nice job. And they, do those kind of engagements. Yeah, it's great use. And so paying somebody a couple $100 for some of their time, if it saves you thousands of dollars in the long run, is well worth it. So get a good professional that's vetted. If you can't find that and you got to work with, whoever comes up on Google or something, maybe still go get a second opinion would be my thought.
Yeah.
I'm not making a recommendation. I'm just making a thought.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I would make sure that they're local, but yeah, I mean, that's one way to find them. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I say that because not everyone is here in Washington County that listens, Brian. For people that are in Washington County here, and they have an interest in working with you, what's the easiest way to find you?
So MedicareTourGuide.com. That's MedicareTourGuide.com. And then, my phone number is on the website. And, and then my email is also there, and they can go to that website and request an appointment, and then I will give them a call, and then I'll see how I can help the best. And then, so I do either in-home appointments if that works for you, or you can come to my office. Either one works.
All right.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brandon.
Yeah. Appreciate you.
Brandon Ducharme is an investment advisor representative of and offers investment advisory services through SCF Investment Advisors Incorporated, an SEC-registered investment advisor, 10150 Meanly Drive, first floor, San Diego, California, 92131, 800-955-2517, www.scfsecurities.com. SCF Investment Advisors Incorporated and Ducharme Wealth Management are separate entities. The information in this podcast is current at the time of recording. It is based upon sources and data believed to be accurate and reliable. The information, opinions, and forward-looking statements expressed herein are subject to change without notice. Moreover, all comments and opinions voiced herein are for informational and entertainment purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations and should not be interpreted as such. Further, the opinions expressed are Brandon Ducharme's and his guests and do not reflect the views and opinions of SCF Investment Advisors or any of its affiliates. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. To determine what is appropriate for you, consult your financial professional. This information is not intended to be a substitute for specific individualized tax or legal advice. Ducharme Wealth Management and SCF Investment Advisors do not provide legal or tax advice. These services are provided by separate entities. The guest speakers featured in this podcast are not affiliated with SCF Investment Advisors, nor are they affiliated with Ducharme Wealth Management unless otherwise indicated. Information presented on this program is believed to be factual and up-to-date, but we do not guarantee its accuracy, and it should not be regarded as complete analysis of the subjects discussed. Discussions and answers to questions do not involve the rendering of personalized investment advice, but are limited to the dissemination of general information. A professional advisor should be consulted before implementing any of the options presented. Encompass More Asset Management LLC is a registered investment advisor with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission and only transacts business in states where it is properly registered or is excluded or exempted from registration requirements.